let's see. Well, um, maybe we'll just start and have everyone say hello. Last time when I started, we did once in a while we'll do like 2-minute introductions, but we ended up having a pretty large group and it took a significant amount of time. So maybe today we'll just say hi and where we're from and then pass it on to the next person. So we make sure we have enough time for actually talking. So there's another one. Okay. So hello, everybody. Welcome to the roundtable today. It's good to have you. My name is Stephanie Schubert. I'm with Pacifica Network, and I am residing in Ames, Iowa. We just had a dusting of snow, but nothing too crazy today. Trying to think of anything else. I work with Ursula. She might be able to come today. She was hoping she would make it. So hopefully we'll see her too. And I go into the station once a week because of COVID restrictions, but then I work from home. Happy to have Matt Murphy today. He's going to talk about strategic planning. And I guess I'm going to pass it over to Julie. She's next to me on top.
Thanks, Stephanie. Hello from rainy Bellingham, Washington. I'm Julie Marletto, Program Director and currently General Manager at KMRE LP, a community radio station here in town. And let's see, I'll pass it over to Heather.
Are you there, Heather?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm Heather with WRG in Atlanta. I'm the affiliate director, one of the affiliate directors on the Pacifica board. So thank you. I just got on. Is there something else I'm supposed to say?
No,
I do want to say we have Aisha Hart.
What's that?
We do have Aisha on, who is our new station manager, actually. I'll let her speak for herself.
Yes. Well, that's a perfect send-off. We'll just pass it over to her.
I'll pass it over to Aisha.
Thank you so much, Heather. Very nice introduction. Yes, my name is Aisha Hardiman. I'm the new station manager for RFG in Atlanta.
Oh, it's good to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And why don't you pass it to somebody?
Okay. Let's see here. I will pass it to Celeste. Is Celeste?
Are you there, Celeste?
On?
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay. Well, how about
come back.
then? Okay. Well, how about I see Lakeisha Freeman? Lakeisha?
I'm here. I just had to.
Oh, okay.
I just had to unmute myself. But I'm Lakeisha Freeman. I'm the general manager of WNCU, and we are located in Durham, North Carolina.
Hi, Lakeisha. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much.
And can you see the screen, Lakeisha? Do you want to pass it to somebody?
Yes, I will pass it to Julie.
Oh, Julie.
Unless there's another one. Yeah, I've already gone.
My bad. That's what I get for trying to be on a call and multitasking, doing other things. So then I will slide the screen. How about did Heather go yet?
She did.
Oh my goodness. Yep. Lucky me.
One more and then I do it.
How about, you know what? Kate is beautiful with that visor that you have on. You have not gone yet. How about you, Kate?
There you go.
What a nice introduction. Thank you. Good to see everybody. I'm Kate Ingram with KPTZ in Port Townsend, Washington. I'm the general manager, and I came to one of these wonderful events a few months ago that was about fundraising for the year end. I gleaned many things from that, and I'm really excited. Usually I have a conflict on Thursday afternoons, but strategic planning is at the top of our list. So thanks for doing this, and nice to see you all.
Good to have you, Kate.
Yeah,
Pass it to somebody.
I will pass it to Daphne. How do you say that? Devine?
Davine.
Divine?
Great.
Davine, but sometimes divine,
Okay.
All the time, all the time.
and in Asheville, North Carolina. And so I'll pass it on to Matt Murphy.
I am Matt Murphy. I'm the general manager of WERU on the Rocky Coast of Maine. And I will pass it on to Matt at KEPW.
Hello, I'm Matt at KEPW. I'm a co-founder of the radio station, and we're in beautiful Eugene, Oregon. I'm also a board member of Eugene Peaceworks. We own and operate the station.
Fantastic. Thanks, Matt. And then we have Mercedes. Are you the finale?
I think so, except for the phone number that's down
And
there.
then we have a phone number. Yes.
So I'm Mercedes Macias. I'm the president of the board of directors for KZFR in Chico, Northern California.
Cool. Thanks, Mercedes. And we have phone number 14237416969. Are you able to say hi? They're just listening. Okay. Well, welcome, phone number. Glad you can make it.
Did Luis go? I feel like he hasn't. Did Luis go already?
What?
Maybe I was asleep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
No,
can't
wait.
remember either.
Oh, that's right. We talked about Louise's door, but we didn't officially welcome him. So Louise, say hi.
Hi, everybody. Just got back from the magical forest. It's 78 degrees here in San Antonio.
Excellent. Okay, and with that, I'll turn it over again to Matt Murphy. Thank you for offering to talk to us about strategic planning today. We had a couple more people too who were sad they couldn't join, and they're gonna definitely watch on the video. So over to you, Matt.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Stephanie. And thanks all of you for being part of the conversation today. So first thing is I want to say that I'm not a consultant, not a strategic planning consultant. I'll relate to you what our experience was, and then you can, take what you want and leave the rest, as they say. Stephanie, you want me to share? I've got an outline I can do a screen share of if you want.
It should be set up for you to be able to do that. If you push this share. Yep.
All right. So the first question that when that comes up when someone says, "Oh, we ought to do strategic planning," is what the hell is a strategic plan? And there's probably a bunch of different ways of looking at it, but for us, we broke it into goals, outcomes, and actions. And the goals mean broad. The outcomes meaning if we're successful, what will things look like? And then, of course, the actions, the things that will be done. And that's the basic plan. I'll find our plan and open it up and show you at the end. So basically, goals, outcomes, and actions for anywhere from 1 to 3 years. And the 5-year strategic plan, from what I've heard from the experts, is a thing of the past. So, and the 3-year plan might be a thing of the past too, just the way things change so fast. The plan helps you to, does establish priorities, guides your work plans, time management. It really, since we did one a couple years ago for the first time in many years, it's really helped me as general manager have my roadmap as to where we need to go and what are the priorities in order to get there, so that when somebody comes up with something brand new that they think is a brilliant idea, it may be, and it may fit into the plan, but it also may just get the response that it's not one of the priorities established in the plan. So let's put it in the parking lot to consider as we go along and review our plan. But today we're not going to be able to do that. It's also a really good promotional tool with foundations and bigger donors, and the general public as well. And then it's a great tool for evaluating how you're doing. You can build some metrics into your plan, whether they're quantitative, how many new listeners did we get, or how many new volunteers, or they can be qualitative, about some of the great stories that got collected in, let's say, in recruiting new volunteers, and a list, describing the new volunteers with their interesting story on how they got attracted to the station is useful information to have in a plan and to assess. And it's ultimately the board of directors and the general manager's responsibility to, as leadership, to chart that way with, and as you'll see, with a lot of feedback from other folks along the way. For us, the beginning stage was we hired a consultant. That can be funded. In our case, it was funded by excuse me, turn off my phone. It was funded by a grant, a community building grant from the Maine Community Foundation on capacity building. And we needed to have a plan for going forward. We had been doing okay without a plan, but we really needed one to make some real progress, and they funded it. So we were able to hire a consultant. I've heard of people finding someone to do it pro bono, or in exchange for underwriting, or so that's a possibility. But having someone to do that was really helpful instead of the president or the general manager, because one, we're already inside the bubble completely, and two, we're authority figures within the bubble, and three, we should be able to participate in the strategic planning as well, as opposed to simply facilitating the process. And we hired a consultant a local person who knows the station very well, and is a big fan of the station. So it wasn't like someone coming out cold who didn't know what community radio was all about. In our case, it worked, having a person who really knew about the station. We started with meeting, a morning-long meeting with the board and the staff. And some places that gets confused with strategic planning. We get together, we put some priorities together, and then we say what we're going to do about it. This was basically just an airing of where we thought the station was doing well, where it could improve, and where we wanted it to go. It was a very kind of wide open discussion that the consultant led us through, and I took notes, and she took notes on a flip chart, and we had a nice set of notes after that meeting. And it was a starting point for the discussion. And we formed a committee. Instead of having 20 people work on the strategic plan, we had a committee of 3 people, I think, myself, 2 board members, and the facilitator. So it was a group of 4. Then we did a volunteer input through a research study and through some volunteer focus groups, and then a couple open meetings. Just come, and we're asking the question, what do you think are the top 3 things the station needs to do in the next 3 years? And those questions got answered, but all kinds of other stuff came in. Again, taking notes and flip chart notes and written notes as well. Then we did the same with listeners. We had some focus groups with listeners picked out of our membership database, and also we invited people who weren't members but who were in the community, like the fire chief, like the city councilor, people like that who weren't already inside the WERU listener family. We also did some surveying, some online surveying, and that was very successful. That's a whole other ball of wax, a whole other talk. But we did some of that, and we did some interviews with some, whatever they call, I've learned, they call key influencers or key opinion leaders, people from another nonprofit who we really respect, their executive director to talk about the role of the station in the community. And all that goes into a briefing book where all the notes from the meetings are, the results from the surveys are, so that the board and the staff who are doing the heavy lifting of the strategic planning have all this information at their fingertips, and they have all of the same information. So it gets beyond the thing of what do I personally think is most important for the station to what are our volunteers and listeners and some experts in the community, what they think. Because it's really, when you do those one weekend or one day planning retreats, it only takes you so far, because it's the only people at the table are, again, already deep into it. They know a lot, but they also may have blinders to some other things. So in the middle stage, the committee does its work of taking all that material, coming up with the basis of the plan and the goals, the planned outcomes and the actions, and then gets a draft of each section to the staff and to the board for feedback. That feedback comes in, and then revisions take place as needed. And that can happen one time, it can happen 5 times. Strategic planning for some organizations is a 6-month process, for others 3. But for a big strategic plan, it's not just a couple of days. And then the final stage, the board of directors, after we go through this revision process, gives it their approval, votes on it. Maybe it needs more work, but usually by the time when we got to the point of asking for a board vote, it had already been gone through the review process. I think we did 2 or 3 versions, 2 or 3 revisions before we put it to the board. The president and I submitted it to the board for approval. And then you start sharing it. You can share it internally at the committee meetings that we earlier on, 3 months before, went to the various standing committees and said, what do you think about the top 3 important things? Then we go back to that committee. Hey, here's the plan you guys helped with, and here's the part that your committee is responsible for. Let's talk about this. And then that your committee is going to be responsible with the staff people in that area for carrying out these things, fine-tuning the details of the actions, because the actions aren't like we're going to have a party on this date in this place. We're going to have a community block party, and then the details get worked out later. And then for external use, it's a really good marketing tool. You can put together a brochure or e-newsletter, or get it on your website, or all of the above and more. In social media, of course, a summary, not the granular details, but a summary of it. And it lets people know that, hey, these guys have their shit together. They're really thinking through their role in the community and how best to serve. For foundations, there's some that won't even accept an application unless you have a strategic plan. And for those that don't require one, it still impresses upon them. We received a funding on one grant when they did the review session. It was actually a state fund, so it had to be public, and it was a Zoom meeting. And they made the comment that the project we were proposing fit perfectly into their strategic plan. And we all who did the strategic plan were going, woo, strategic plan. And I think that really helped with us to get that grant. And then, of course, if you're working on some higher donors, and sometimes they want to know, so what's your plan for the next 3 years? And then you're able to put this in their hands, and they're very impressed, and they write huge checks. That part hasn't happened for us yet, but hopefully. The huge checks. Well, we did get a huge check recently from someone, so it did work with that person. And then there's the implementation through the guide for the staff, for committee work, and the board and the general manager at each month do some sort of a review. What we do is, in my monthly report to the board, I put an asterisk next to anything that was accomplished or is being worked on that was in the strategic plan. And it gives the board a little time to celebrate that we finished our app, or we got the new logo design, both of which we got grant funds for. And so they get to have a little celebration and give kudos to the committee, or the staff, whoever did that work. And then every year you go through the plan again and you make an assessment of what worked, what didn't work, and what gets pushed into the next year or the year after that. We're really operating on, we did a 3-year plan and then the pandemic, arrived. And so we're really working on a 2-year plan. So that's our what we did for strategic planning. What's related, I've learned from a couple professional facilitators, is that the thing of scenario planning, which is more granular. It's a component of the strategic plan. The committee or the board may use it to get into more detail about, like, what happens, the example of what happens if we still have to do everything virtual. We're able to do some things in person, or we're able to have that block party in person. And planning for those different eventualities, so that when they happen, or planning for something that could happen that might be really difficult. If having something in the plan, in the pipelines already, you're not having to completely scramble to address on how to deal with that. Or if it's something as simple as, well, not as simple, but as straightforward as we need more volunteers from schools, more programming from the high schools, let's say. You can put together a plan that's part of your strategic plan that gets down into more details. And this thing here, as I found, or was shown, was by this outfit called Visual Paradigm online. And this is a little scenario planning chart that if you go to Visual Paradigm online, you'll find this. And it's they've got a lot of information on how to do scenario planning. But think of scenario planning, at least my understanding of it's fine-tuned strategic planning on small parts of your plan. So that's my spiel. And let me get our plan. It's not like particularly pretty. The brochure that we did, which I don't have any more of to show, I maybe could find one, but that was pretty. This is basically very much a working document for internal use. And we updated it this year. It was first done in 2019, and then we had an update this fall, which we did go through the entire process again. We went through parts of it, and we did some scenario planning around dealing with the pandemic. So the plan, and this is what the facilitator led us through. We came up with the preamble for planning, or the context in which we were planning. And that can be anything from, here's what we know our challenges are, here's what we know are the good things that are happening in the community, here's our role. And it's basically a general overview of, in one paragraph and some bullet points, as to the station's background really quickly, and what what the environment you operate in is. We have our mission statement, and then our vision statement, which the vision, in our case, the vision and the mission statement are kind of competing to see which one is actually going to be the mission statement. But that's one of our goals in our strategic plan, is to do a little bit of rebranding. And so there we have our goals, and those were established by the strategic planning committee and then vetted by the board and staff. And then it goes down into goal 1, and I'll stop there. So goal 1 is maintain programming diversity and cultivate diversity among volunteer programmers. And in Maine, this part of Maine, the rural Maine, is a big issue. Is every nonprofit is looking for young people, because there aren't, relatively speaking, aren't that many. And that's one thing that we have in here. So the outcomes are maintain our programming quality and diversity. So meaning we have a very patchwork quilt schedule, but in audience research, that was one of the biggest things, the diversity and the eclectic nature of our schedule. So we want to maintain that. B, use digital platforms, make sure they're current and well utilized, et cetera. Then there's the actions that are here, like for instance, number one, continue to adapt training process for new volunteer orientation and program training for the pandemic. That's one that wasn't in the plan a year ago and obviously is in the plan now as we revise the plan. So you'll see in 2022, there's not much in there because there's so much uncertainty. If there wasn't a pandemic, we probably could have or would have.
Are you showing a screen, Matt?
Oh, I thought I was.
You were, well, I think you went out of it, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
Wow, what an idiot. All right, let me try that again then.
Okay.
Can you see, you see what you saw before?
There it is.
Yeah, that's what you, oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry about that, folks.
No worries.
I'll go into less detail since you've already heard it, but you didn't get to see it. We have, this is the part that's used internally and with foundations and some select people who aren't volunteers or board or staff that we really want to impress with this granular view. But there's a preamble that basically, as I said, describes the context in which the station is doing its planning. The mission and vision, so that those are front and center to anyone looking at this, whether they're on the committee, whether they're a board member. They're the prism that we look through how the station is doing. And then there's the goals that were established by the strategic planning committee and vetted by board and staff. So here was what I said was the first goal: maintain programming diversity and cultivate diversity among volunteer programmers. The next one going down, we went into, and this was maybe of interest because we talked recently about fundraising in one of these groups. Well, this is about increased outreach and engagement with listeners. For instance, outcome by the end of 2021, the number of online and/or in-person events will be 4 annually because we haven't been able to do them very well in 2020. So we'd like to get back up to have at least 4 station events that are exclusively station events. Then we go down into grow membership, higher giving, foundation giving, and underwriting. And then there's the outcomes and the actions. And then finally, the biggest section, strengthen organizational capacity. And we broke that into staff, board of directors, volunteers, physical infrastructure, and technical infrastructure. That was a big one. But there was a lot of stuff that we need to do for cultivating our organizational capacity. So I guess I will stop there and yield to questions or just discussion that you all want to have.
I know the first question came from Matt Laubach. He was just curious if you could share your notes with us. I don't know if through email would be best or.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll give them to you, Stephanie, and you can distribute them. How's
Yes,
that?
please. Yeah, that sounds great.
And you can have our plan too.
Yeah, I'll just put them on this list.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, we've shared the plan because guess what? We looked at other people's plans too before doing ours. So feel free to look at ours. There's a lot of borrowing in community radio. And let me get out of this screen. And I saw somebody's hand. Yeah, Mercedes.
Okay, thanks. So we're going through our strategic planning process right now, also borrowing from other stations. So this is part of it. But your first goal of increasing diversity, what are the actions that you've established? Because I'm a younger person, I'm 30, I'm the youngest person by around 30 to 40 years on average. And I'm a crazy person, obviously, since I'm working for free. But what we are finding is that we can't get younger people to come volunteer because we have such a hard economy that they simply don't have time. They're already usually working 2 jobs or whatever. Some have families. So what are the actions that your strategic planning has identified? I saw you formed a committee, but I'd like to really hear more about that.
Oh, about in terms of getting younger people activated at the station.
Yeah, how do you
Yeah.
incentivize that without money, or do you use money, or how does that work for your station?
No, well, one thing is that, it's a goal that popped up in many places in the plan. And we were a member of the NFCB's Community Counts Initiative, not last year, year before, along with Lakeisha. And we had that was our goal, was coming up with plans for doing that. One of the things that we've done that we didn't do in the past, and this is really simple, but if any person under 45 says, oh, I like the station, like I'm on them, like come on in for coffee. Like someone shows up at the door before the pandemic. I'll give you an example. He was a young guy who grew up here, and like in many places in rural parts of the country, he took off as soon as he could, went to college, got married, and then decided, hey, let's move back to town. And he came back and stopped by the station and say, hey, my dad listened and I listened a little bit growing up. Is there any place for me to help out? And instead of saying, well, our training takes place on this date and here's the handout and come to the training, it was like, come on in right now, sit down, have coffee. And so it was very individualized. Instead of using the group recruitment and training model, we still use that, but and then he told a friend who became involved in volunteering. And my premise was that, and I heard this from some one-on-one conversations, I would listen if I heard people who sounded like me. And if all they're hearing is grandma and grandpa on the radio, that's cool for a little while, but that might not be something that I really get behind. So that's been a big issue. In the last 18 months, we've brought on 12 new programmers, and 8 of them have been under 40. So, and that's unprecedented for us since the beginning of the station, or the first few years of the station. I was 30 when I started volunteering and then on the staff, and I'm not 30 anymore. And so that's a individualized contact with people to let them know that. And then the other thing is, once that individualized contact is made, is if it's around programming, is get them right into training and on the air as fast as possible. Don't say, all right, well, you can do the training and then sometime in the next year, maybe something will open up. We went to some of the older programmers who've been on for 30 years and said, hey, would you be up for sharing? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That's really what we want you to do. And some of the older programmers came to me and said, hey, you got some of these young people around. Anybody want to share my show? And they were psyched, to have young people around participating. And another thing was getting people, if they expressed any, here's another example. I was at a meeting with our Organic Farming and Gardening Association for an event they were putting on that had to be virtual this year. And one of their staff, who was about in mid-20s, said, oh, I love WERU. I love the reggae. And I said, well, we have to talk then. So we talked, and she's on our development committee now. And she, I just gave her the menu of what are the things available. And she said, I don't want to be on the air. She's the outreach and engagement officer for the Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association. Isn't she a great catch to be on our development committee? And the key was not saying, sure, if you'd like to go through the training and then, no. It was just come to the next development meeting. She, oh, great, I will. And so that's just one of many things that we did. We were going to do some events, but some things got in the way, obviously, of doing that. But we're planning a virtual event for this spring that's for younger people.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't say enough about being, and you as a person who's not 50 years old knows that you don't have time to sit around. You want to get going. That's something I heard. And instead of coming in, well, I'll check out the station for 6 months, and I want something to do, and my time is valuable, and I don't have much because of these extra jobs I have, but I want to be part of community. And getting over some of the fallacies. Younger people don't care about community. They just care about themselves. That's no good. That's bullshit. Younger people won't donate. They will. They may not give $5,000 because they don't have that, but $5 is pretty good. And they get along with old people. It's amazing. I mean, they don't hate old people. And so we've got a thing now where the older people are really liking having younger people around in bigger numbers than 3 years ago. We were saying, oh my God, this station is going to die because it's just all old people who used to be 30 when they started the station are now 60 and 70 and retiring from doing a show. What are we going to do? Well, this is what we've been doing, and it's successful so far. Same with getting board members.
It looks like Aisha has a question.
Yeah, Aisha.
So sorry about the delay. I was on mute and I'm also driving. So you mentioned briefly about underwriting, and I'm really new in my situation with WRFG. And for me, one of the areas that I thought was widely under tapped was underwriting. And so my first question is, how have you performed in that area last year versus how you may be pacing for this year? And on average, do you offer any of the people who help you sell underwriting a commission for their sales?
Yeah, sure. And there's Stephanie, there's one of these recorded all about this, right?
Yes, we have that on our tutorials. I'll send it to you too, Aisha, as another resource.
Yeah, but real quickly, this year, since the pandemic, we lost a third of our underwriting. And I've heard some losing more than that. But what we did is anyone who couldn't continue, we kept them on the air as an underwriter for no charge, and said, come back when you can. And that's been pretty warmly received. I think we stole that from another station, and maybe one of you. And in strategic planning for underwriting, there were things that we needed to do. We put in the plan more marketing better marketing of underwriting, even within our own airways. We hadn't done a promo about underwriting in like 2 years. Like, that's stupid. But it took us sitting down and doing some planning to realize that and say, all right, this is a priority. We got to get this done. Our underwriting manager is a part-time 20-hour-a-week position, salaried position. We don't do commission. I know that's a big topic, a huge topic, but we don't do that. So.
Thank you. Thank you for that insight.
Thanks for the question.
Mercedes, I had a thought too, based on your question. It's something that I think about a lot, and frankly, I've struggled with a little bit at KMRE. Again, we're in Bellingham, Washington, but trying to get younger people on. We're a community station, and I hear, well, how much does it pay? Or, I'm working 3 jobs, I don't have time. And so one of the things I've been thinking about, and I'm going to propose a slight shift in the way we approach that. I can't say this is going to work yet, but I just thought I'd share. And in the language that we use. So we currently very much use the approach volunteer, help KMRE, which definitely appeals to some people. We get a lot of new volunteers through our local county volunteer page, a website. However, I'm finding that doesn't appeal to everyone. So I'm probably going to take a dual approach and start using language that I hope appeals to the younger crowd. Things like become a content creator and talk about being creatively fulfilled and making a difference in the world. And so focus more, answer the question, what's in it for them? Instead of you help us, how can we help you? So I'm going to try that and see how that goes.
Yeah, that's a good approach, and that's one of the things that we've been doing in messaging. Another thing that I found resonates a lot, and it just sort of came up of me, being a knucklehead talking to someone over coffee, saying, "Yeah, well, I'm basically looking for my replacement," and they said, "Oh, really? You're looking for?" I said, "Yeah, I was 30 when they gave me the reins." That was a long time ago. I want to do the same for somebody else and then we started talking about the next generation. We're looking for not just people on the air, people on the committees, but people on the board and on the staff. And so when I said, the next generation of leadership, that ears seem to prick up with that. And I think it gets the message that we're serious. We're not just looking for someone to come in and do a show, as cool and as important as that is. Just a quick thing about that for people who are too busy with their work or family, young family, is that we try to put together shows that are shared by a number of people. So it's not an every week thing. It may be a once a month thing. Now with the pandemic, a lot of it's done at home, but we'll probably continue that for people that after the pandemic, hopefully we're able to get everyone in the studio. It'll still be an option. If you've got 2 kids and you really don't want to come to the station, but you really want to do a show, we'll be as accommodating as possible. And I think I think too that we have lost a couple people whose jobs changed during the pandemic, a librarian and a tech director at a school. But they're planning on coming back. And one of them, is really into sharing with somebody else. And that can be good. The burden is lighter with, 2 to 3 to 4 hosts on a show taking turns. And if you have a food co-op nearby, go there. And that's where I find a lot of volunteers. They have a lot of young people working there. And I got one guy doing jazz now, and he talks to everybody about the station all the time. So I think I'm going to get another guy out of that group. And then so.
I can second that emotion. I worked at a co-op, and there's a lot of musicians and people interested in politics and new age stuff and anything you can think of that are passionate.
Can I just jump, Stephanie? This is Heather. Can I just? Okay.
Yeah.
Matt,
Sure,
I want to
Heather.
thank you so much for your presentation. Just wonderful. And thanks for mentioning a couple of things like cooperatives. Most of my work has been with the Federation of Southern Cooperatives, which works with Black farmers across the South for 24 years. I was director of communications. So I'm very interested in doing more education on cooperatives. I think I've talked with Stephanie about that as well, right? So,
Yep, that's right.
But the other thing, I appreciate you talking about organic urban production. In Atlanta, we have Rashid Nuri, who is the leading organic farmer here in Atlanta. I say the Southeast, really, he makes presentations all over the country. But he was instrumental in starting for the first time a Department of Urban Agriculture, or a Director of Urban Agriculture here in Atlanta. There is now one Director of Urban Agriculture in Washington, D.C., and also in Boston. So I'm mentioning this to everyone. It would be great if we had more programs just generally about organic urban production. So I just wanted to mention that there are any number of people all over the country who could be interviewed. And I sent a note to the Pacifica Board about this as well, to encourage folks to please consider talking with folks, interviewing people on urban production, organic urban production, that is. So Matt, respond to that, please.
Well, I mean, the urban part doesn't apply to us, but the organic part certainly does. And Maine is got the oldest population in the state. I mean, in the country, but it also has the youngest average age of a farmer and because there's a lot of this next wave of back to the land is happening now, and the farmers who came in the 70s to get back to the land are now retiring and giving their farms over to young people. So Farmers markets are a great place to find people who are interested in the station. If you can get a table at a farmer's market, that's, worth its weight in gold or carrots or whatever. So I think that getting information on that is relevant to the community is obviously important. And organic foods are so important, and farming is so important, whether it's urban farming or in rural areas and local food economies. So we have a show all about that. So I think if you can cultivate someone to do a show about that, partner with an organization and have their communications director host a monthly show on your station, that's been really successful for us.
Yeah, that's great. Well, just so you know, I interview Rashid Nuri once a month, always. For years, I've been doing that on the show. But I think there could be a lot more done, probably at WRG, but certainly at other stations around the country also. So, but thanks for your great work. Wonderful.
Oh, thanks.
I see there's a question from Mercedes.
I do think Matt had his hand up before me, but I'm happy to go.
That's fine too.
Okay, yeah.
Do you want to go first?
Hi. So you're talking about co-ops. Our radio station is upstairs in the growers market, which is the first co-op. It's been around for over 30 years. And why not have the co-op ask them to play your radio station? That seems to work pretty well with us. So just wanted to make that suggestion.
Yeah, make sure that the store want to make sure it has the right copyright permissions. That we had a store locally here that was doing that, and they got in trouble because they didn't have permission to, not from us, but from the music industry. So something to look into. But yeah, because our co-op one of the co-ops in our area used to play the station all the time, and they got some legal prodding to go to another service that they were actually paying for. But I think that's great. At farmers markets is a great place if you have a booth, to have the station going. Yeah, Matt, anywhere that we can get the station on the air, you can get your station on the air is good, particularly at places where, like Stephanie said, there's people who are interested in community and interested in the arts and interested in volunteerism. Yeah.
All right, am I up? I've got tons of questions, so I'm just going to ask one and then see how that goes. This kind of connects to the last two sessions about business models, but with strategic planning and understanding, FM, AM, the radio versus the internet, and versus different models where people are attracted to, Patreon and YouTube and other independent places where they can put their podcasts and monetize that. Is that a consideration for you, Matt, with your strategic planning of how do you stay relevant as a media source? And then I also wanted to hear if anybody here has any experience with considering stipends or any kind of thing like that for programmers, but also for board members to try to get not just younger people, but people of color, and specifically younger people of color, to be able to participate. These are my questions. Yeah, how do we stay relevant, and how is that reflected in your strategic plan? Thanks.
Well, in our strategic plan, the issue of relevance is kind of coats over everything, but a lot of things anyways, particularly in the programming section. I think that, well, let me see. Well, in terms of, like you mentioned, like podcasting and other things, and we have a priority in the plan about staying up on digital platforms. So we're getting ready to build a podcast landing page on our website where podcasts that are curated by us, they could be other places too, but they're mostly local, curated by the station, and with our, for some people, it means a lot that WERU put them on their website. It means a lot to listeners. A bunch of stations do. WTJU does a really nice job with that in Charlottesville. And we're going to try to get something like that going. We had in our plan, our previous plan, to have a mobile app, and now we do. And these were important places for us to be, offer our programming on multiple platforms. And FM is not by any stretch of the imagination dead, but it's might not be the first go-to for everybody, as we know. We just a very quick funny story is the person that was knocked on the door, and I brought in, and we had coffee. And before he even knew what hit him, he was having coffee with me. And I was talking about the station, and I stood up to pour the coffee. And I said, "Oh, and you might be interested to know we just launched a new mobile app, and it's really pretty cool." And by the time I sat down, he says, "I know, I just downloaded it. Yeah, it is pretty cool." I mean, in like 30 seconds, and I would think before that, oh, it could take a little while to do that. He did it while I was pouring coffee, showed how, and I knew with him, that was something that struck a chord, and his friends. So, that in that case is staying relevant by staying on the platforms that people have, not even talking about programming, but just talking about the platforms. And I forget what your other question was.
It was a little bit about business models from the last two sessions in strategic planning with stipends.
Yeah, we haven't done that, although we've done some internships as part of the strategic plan. We just had one person finish who did a 6-month internship while she was in school. But I've heard of some stations do that for their news departments, that they have stipends for, quasi volunteers who do really great work, because as everyone who's done news knows, it's wicked labor intensive and it's not always fun. So I've heard of that, and I've heard of in underwriting as well. Haven't heard of any board members doing that, and I don't know if there's some sort of legal conflict of interest that might come into play.
See, Davine has a question.
Can I ask you how you developed your app? Did you do it in-house? Did you use software? How did you go about it?
We used a company called Public Media Apps. We got some grant money to, under the auspices of, if we're trying to reach younger people, we need to be in the app game. We applied to the foundation and got the money in it. It costs us about $3,000 a year. So it's not cheap, but it's not insurmountable, the cost. And with the grant money to get it started, that was really, really important. But we wouldn't have had anybody in-house. Well, maybe we did have someone in-house who'd know how to do it, but they've been so great I don't want to do an ad for them, but they've been really good to work with. And
the other question is, you've mentioned grants a lot. Did you hire a grant writer, or are you all doing that in-house?
In-house, our development director does a lot of grant writing, and the previous one did too. And we were very kind of judicious in who we applied for under the previous development director, because I used to write and they wrote. And when she left, our new development director who came in, who happens to be her husband, it kind of worked out pretty cool that way. He hit the ground running, and last year he wrote 50 grant proposals. And some of them are, shots in the dark, and others are from places like the Maine Community Foundation, which has given us a lot of money over the years. But yeah.
But then another question that I have then for the group in general, I think it would be very helpful to many of us if there was a shared grant writer that would help us figure out how to do that and pay them for doing it, and help up our grant recipient ability.
That's a really interesting idea.
by interesting, do you think it's workable? Because sometimes I use interesting whenever I want to blow somebody
Yeah,
off.
that's true. Yeah, no, I wasn't, I do too, but I was not what I was doing there. I mean, there's regional, in Minnesota, AMPERS, the regional underwriting organization. I certainly could see, in a state or regional, somebody coming up with, again, writing a grant to get money to hire someone to serve multiple stations. Um, that's, it seems interesting in a genuinely interesting way.
I have a comment if anybody isn't up next. Stephanie, we good?
Go for it.
All right. Hey, Matt, thank you so much. This is very interesting and very informative, helpful to us all. I had a question. My question is basically, I did join in late, so I apologize if this is already covered, but I'm curious, for us at our station, time and money are the two most precious resources. And we simply have not had the time to do a strategic plan. And every time the board wants to do a strategic plan, it's like we've got 50 other events happening and we just really haven't been able to take our break from our day-to-day reality to sit down and do a strategic plan. They did bring in a couple of consultants that are wanting to help us, but for an extraordinary, I think, amount of money to tell us how to run a station that we're pretty good at running already. We're not doing any grants. We're done with that game. I'm not playing that game anymore. I'm not. If you find someone to write grants for us, that's great. But I've just been too frustrated with too many really quality grants that we've gotten passed over, I think, political things and whatnot. So I'm over that. So I guess my question is, and maybe more to the group, because Matt, I can see that your strategic plan is very active and you all are using it, to develop your station. But I know a lot of other stations and organizations that spend a lot of time and money on their strategic plan, and then they basically like put it in a drawer and close the drawer, and then they go back to doing what they were doing, and rarely reference it, rarely go back to it, is what I've heard from other nonprofits. So I guess my question is do other stations, have you guys taken the time to do the strategic plan? And is it something that you use, that you reflect on, that that you're growing with? Is it a useful thing? That's the question.
Darren, could I just real quick say, in terms of the time that it takes to do it, that's a big premise of why you have a small committee, that you're able to kind of strategically pick like a couple board members who in their life have time to do this, and their job on the board, maybe they don't have to serve on a committee for a year or whatever. This is what they do. So that's how we got around it. Because yeah, same here. I mean, so we're all so busy, it's insane. But it has helped me. Taking the time to do that really helped us focus in on what we want to do and what's important to do. And so the running from thing to thing to thing to thing, not really knowing which one is important, but it's right in front of me. It's really great to be able to say, not in the plan, can't do it right now, I'm working on this. But yeah, getting a couple board members or a couple real, knowledgeable volunteers who can devote themselves to this. But for the general manager and the board president, there's no way out of it being work.
Right, and I would hesitate just to have the strategic plan happen and not have the primary people involved in doing that. I mean, my concern is they bring in a consultant and everything's running fine, and all of a sudden this consultant says, oh no, you need to be doing this, and now you need to be doing that. And it just seems like a level of management maybe that is a little bit overreaching for where we are.
Yeah, you want a consultant who's going to take you through a process, not tell you how to do things. And you can certainly shop around. We didn't in this case, but I've been in some other organizations locally where we put it out to 2 or 3 different consultants and said, here's our situation, make a proposal. And they would tell you what their process is. And we picked the process that fit best for us. But yeah, it's not about, unless you get a specific radio consultant to come in and say, we need to revamp our programming or whatever. that's, I think a strategic planning facilitator does their best work when they're about process.
Any other,
Yeah,
Debbie?
so we did one. We hired a consultant who specialized in nonprofits, and our board met over about we had special meetings for about 4 months, and we developed kind of an overview of where we wanted to go. And so, and it was for 4 years out. And what I do use it for is at our annual meeting, I go through how we've progressed with those points that were made, and give a review to our board and our members about the progress that we've been able to make based on that strategic plan that we started up with. So we do use it, and we're going to do it again. And I appreciate Matt's strategic plan here, because it will work for us.
And ours is pretty, as you saw from the format, it's nothing flashy.
Right.
Pretty basic. We didn't go for a big firm, consulting firm. We looked at one and it was just too much money. But the person we got that's a one-woman shop she was very much in demand, and we were lucky she loves the station that she, gave us the family discount, I suspect. So yeah, using it as an assessment tool is really important. Using it to celebrate, check off another box and have a little dance about it. Celebrating the successes is wicked important.
Did you have something to add, Mercedes?
Sure. Yeah. To answer the question that Sharon posed, we here at KZFR had a strategic plan from several years back, the last 5-year strategic plan, and that probably would have expired in 2018. To my awareness, it never got used. And so that had to do with our board having a high rate of turnover. That was before my time on the board, and butting heads between the general manager and the mission statement of the organization and therefore the board. And so that's another reason why it was really hard to implement a strategic plan after creating one, because there wasn't like strong leadership from the paid position. So now we redid it in September, and we are still experiencing that same problem, that without a strong partnership between the general manager and the board of directors, it's almost impossible, I think, from our experience so far, to implement anything when there are goals that require, like remedies. People kind of like, oh, no, thanks. And they resign because they don't want to deal with stuff. So I don't know. We're also an older station. We're 30 years old. So there's been a lot more time for relationships to develop or deteriorate. So I also want to put that in there. I think we're doing well, but that's the truth of it.
Yeah, the importance of particularly the president and the general manager working well together. Without that, yeah, it'd be pretty hard because they're the standard bearers, for keeping the thing alive and keeping the thing in front of people's faces. But it's hard for one to do it without the other. I definitely, feel bad for anyone who has a bad board president or a board president who has a bad general manager, because they've got to be able to work together. One thing that I've heard organizations do is that do some board training before you strategic plan. Have a consultant come in for, even if it's just an hour presentation, or maybe there's a nonprofit association nearby that offers, like a board. We have one in Maine, the Association of Nonprofits, that offers a thing they call board boot camp. So military terminology notwithstanding, it's pretty cool that it's a all-day thing, and board members walk out of there knowing an awful lot more, particularly like professional development. If it's someone who hasn't been on a board or hasn't been on a functional board, then they know, oh, my job is a lot about the big picture and strategic planning. And they get that. And also people who don't want to do that can fall away knowing that, oh, it's not just about coming to a meeting and smiling when the general manager makes a report. There's some stuff to do. So, and you're laughing, Mercedes, because you know those kind of board members.
Yes, indeed. And I'm still smiling.
Yeah.
It takes all kinds, is what I said before I muted myself.
And I think it's really important what David said, and what we have to do.
Stephanie, is there a place where Matt or Davine could share their strategic plans? Is there like document sharing with Pacifica?
Davine and I had talked about that in the past a little bit, and I think this will be a good opportunity to, if I set up like a Google Drive, you guys, and Matt was gonna send me his, and if Davine is okay sending me hers, and I can give everyone the link. We can start like a policy folder. So whenever we have a meeting like this, we can put it on record. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and if I can find the digital format of our brochure that we used for marketing the strategic plan around, I'll send that too. I just couldn't find it for this meeting.
Okay.
It's really nice. It's really nice. Our previous development director, she had some real chops with graphic design and put a real nice brochure together.
That sounds great. Yeah, we can add that too.
Hi, Ursula.
Hi, Ursula. Glad you could join us.
Sorry, I'm late.
Well, lucky for you, it's recorded.
Exactly.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Or this has been a really great discussion, you guys.
Yeah, great questions.
Everything is fulfilled. Okay. Well, thank you again,
Betty,
Matt. This
put
was
your
lovely.
hand up.
Somebody? Oh, Betty.
Yes, you caught me with my hand up, but not because I want to talk.
Oh.
Relaxing position
Just
for my
doing
hand.
jazz hands. Let's see. Oh, there's some note in the chat. Is there something else we need to add? Oh, some people are just saying thank you, and it was awesome. Good job, Matt.
Oh, thank you. I get pretty excited about this stuff, this strategic planning, because it's made my life as a general manager just, better in some ways.
You think just having that core, having your core values together.
Yeah, and the priorities. What are we really trying to do? And that's better than jumping from, this thing to that thing to this thing to that thing and not really knowing why, other than some people want it to happen. This puts it together as a way that you can really be organized about getting stuff done.
Well, I'll look forward to getting those documents from you guys, and then I'll get them out to everybody so we can keep it going. And I'll just put out there, since we have more new faces too, which is so great. I love seeing new people. If you guys have a topic that you want to talk about, please don't be shy. And even if it's something, sometimes it's nice when someone can give a full presentation, but then we had other times where we just had someone who was like a lead-off batter and got the discussion started. That was another way to do it if you don't want to be the full person that does it.
I still want to talk about surveys. Does anybody else want to talk about?
I see.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Surveys. Okay.
Yeah.
Stephanie?
Yeah.
It's not that difficult to set up a Google Drive document folder. You can do it just like in about a minute or two. And then you just share that link with everyone, and everyone who has that link can upload documents. So if you'll establish a folder and send whoever is interested the link, I'll upload our strategic information stuff for you.
Oh, okay. So instead of you emailing me your stuff, I'll set up the folder and email you the link. Well,
And everybody, yeah, and give us editing ability to be able to add a document.
okay, that sounds good. I'll do that. Sound simpler.
It's easy.
Thanks everyone for listening to my ramblings.
We love it.
Yeah, most people won't do that, so that's very nice of you.
I'll look
Thank you,
forward to
Matt.
watching the recording of it, of your ramblings.
Thank
Yeah, lots there. Thanks so much.
Well, on that note, we'll call it a day, and thanks everyone for a wonderful discussion, and we'll see you again in the future. Have a good
Bye,
Thursday.
everyone.